Hey, I'm going to dip into this antinatalism debate. Forgive me if I repeat things that have been said already, but there's a million videos and I've definitely not been keeping up to the point where I know them all. Still in France right now, Annecy, the Venice of the Alps, they say, because of these little babies. Can't see it, but that is a river in the middle of the city, a little canal. It's really beautiful. Anyway, for me the point is it's kind of moot until we solve bigger issues about meaningfulness, and which experiences are in fact experiences of suffering and which are in fact experiences of pleasure. And until we figure that out, there's really no answering this question of, are we imposing life on people or gifting it to them, bequeathing it to them? It seems like there's this debate between, what are we really doing when we're giving birth? Is it, imposing this shit, or, giving people something different? And for me, until that is solved, I really have no frigging idea. And it kind of requires an understanding of a standard of values or worth that I don't think anybody has solved at all. Even in my own self, I'm constantly shifting between, experiences of contentness and experiences of, okay, I need to fucking move on and get out of here. In my own self, I'll shut off certain parts of my brain when I'm experiencing pain to make it more tolerable. And all of a sudden, what I found insufferable before becomes something quite sufferable. So, and it's the exact same experience. I'm doing a bike trip right now, and it gets hard on the road going 70, 80, 90 kilometers a day, and you're going up that hill and you're telling yourself, just give up, just give up. This sucks, I'm suffering. But then something in your brain clicks, some momentum or some inspiration clicks, and it's all right again. So when there's this kind of ambiguity between what's going on in these present moments as adults, who's to say that any given present moment ever that anybody experiences is either good or bad? And I think it touches on this bigger philosophical point that's been debated about, whether you can even call something like a bad, painful moment something evil. There's something so subjective about any experience ever that it's hard to really label something good or bad in an objective manner, in the universal cosmic manner separate from human beings. So, until any of that is solved, this antinatalism debate doesn't really make sense to me. And besides that, for the moment, okay, just to, dip in and make an official stance, not be too in the clouds here, I would probably have to call myself an antinatalist, because I'm definitely a person who thinks that the ends justify the means to a certain extent. If we're pumping out babies by the billions at this exponential rate, there's going to be an end. I'm smart enough to understand that the world is a finite thing. We've got a certain amount of resources, and we don't cap that. We don't tell people no. We're just going to die out like any other species that over eats or over consumes. It's simple mathematics. Basic mathematics. So what countries like China are doing, yeah, I'm all for it. And any value-based argument against that, I feel, has its roots in some kind of Western individualism that is basically a system of thought that hasn't tied up its own loose ends. We're so used to bathing in the kind of luxury that we enjoy due to technology and science, which we've invented for ourselves, and which is the basis of these comfortable lives we live, that we basically have built up this kind of like understanding of the world and the way things should be, this morality that is contingent, is conditional on the natural resources being there. So I think a lot of these arguments we have for ourselves and that we imbibe at an early age, that we sort of, we watch on TV all the time, these basic aphorisms and stories, storybook tales that we learn from a young age. They're basically these things that we have the luxury of enjoying. And without some of the basic necessities, some of the necessary material conditions, none of this would be going on. We would still be enslaving each other, and we would still be in a very barbaric state. So, what are the conditions that we must maintain in order to have something like society, in order to have a race? Well, one of them is a stable population. Basic Malthusian dilemma. So yeah, I'm all for antinatalism. But at the same time, it's possible to play around with kind of rights-based theories like Professor Anton's been playing around with. And this is exactly what I'm learning in law. These aren't just metaphysical questions, abstract, head in the clouds type questions. These are things that people actually have to deal with in the real world. Does a fetus have any rights before it's born? It's basically this thing. And in the courts, at least in my country, we've basically taken the position that Professor Anton has taken, because it is based, like I said, in that Western liberal individualistic tradition that forms most of our law. You cannot say that something like life is an imposition, when basically in order to feel like something is an imposition or something is harming you, you have to have a life in the first place, right? That is the condition that must exist in order for pain to exist. It comes first. The pain didn't come before the choice of either experiencing pain or not experiencing pain. So from that perspective, I'm all with Professor Anton. But the thing is, I've got a nuanced enough understanding about, how plucked up out of the air, out of nowhere, Western individualism really is, to say, like, well, great. If I took on to rights-based theory, this would make a hell of a lot of sense to me. But I really don't. I don't even believe in the concept of a right. I believe in the concept that everybody has the right to anything. There's no standard. We're a floating ball of fucking material in the universe, flying at whoever knows which speed, because speed is, we don't even know how fast we're going, because we don't even have a stable point in the universe to tell, to measure ourselves against. So that's all we are. It's matter in motion. And any kind of morality is always going to be relative to some kind of physiological process that's going on in whatever organism you want to talk about, or whatever individual within that group of species or population within the species that you want to talk about. So, this suffering business that Gary talks so much about is very, first of all, I'm going to say species-centric, organic-centric, but definitely not anthropocentric. Because this claim he makes about life being overwhelmingly about suffering, well, you could kind of make that argument from the context of Western societies. Maybe you look at ghetto kids, or the underprivileged, or this gap that exists between the poor and the rich. yeah, maybe en masse, there's more suffering in whatever, however you want to define it from these subjective perspectives. You know, the people in the West, they have everything, but they're depressed anyway. So, oh, that's suffering. Okay, great. You can maybe define it that way. In a worldwide perspective, probably a better argument. Yeah, there's people dying of typhoid, malaria, whatever, what have you, starving, being killed in genocides. That too is a good argument for this perspective that everything sucks, right? And definitely in the animal kingdom, with insects by the billions dying, I don't know, every second, bacteria, whatever. Yes, it's mostly dying. That gets into questions of, do you need a sensory system to feel pain, and can we even call something like an insect or a bacteria dying suffering? I don't know. Gets into questions of that. The thing is, though, when you come to this anthropocentric perspective, which is basically what antinatalism is about, it's a debate about a government policy. Should we or should we not restrict reproduction, at the government level? And when you're talking about this debate from that level, which is where it's important, I don't know if I do agree that life is an imposition, because I do see a lot of happy people, and I do see a lot of potential with things like technology and society for progressing. It's a very stable thing. So I really don't know where I'd side. I guess it's really, at this point, when we're as advanced as we are, we are human beings at this level that we are now. We are knowledgeable about our own moods, our own mind states, and we definitely have the power to take hold of that and change things around. We have the power to put ourselves into worlds of delusion that make things okay. We have the power to forget, especially a smart person. So I don't even know if this suffering thing is really a good excuse for not wanting to introduce new people to this world, if the conditions are there for it to happen, if we have the resources and a sustainable society. I don't think there's any reason not to restrict people from entering this world. People are responsible. People have the ability to take hold and take grasp of their own emotions and direct it in a new way. I'm smart enough with my own emotions to know that if, I'm going to cry every time I watch a Woody Allen movie, it depresses me, or every time I read Jean-Paul Sartre, I'm going to stop reading Jean-Paul Sartre, for fear of suicide, for fear of being a depressed individual. And these kind of decisions direct where I go. I'm definitely my own choices. I am constantly choosing where I go emotionally. And, if someone like Gary has a problem with that, just turn off, man. Turn off. It's like the television. Turn off that fucking movie if you don't like it. Turn off this thought process. Because it's definitely not an inevitability. And if you think that the conceptual system that you have going on is any less of a delusion than anything else that anybody else ever thinks, then I'm sorry, friend, but I'll have to disagree. We are not even built with the right equipment to think logically about the universe. We are so subjective to the core of the most minute gray matter we've got clicking in our brain. So if you think you have a grasp on anything resembling truth, man, give me 1 billion years to show you how wrong you are, and how manipulative I could be with a neurological system given the right scientific knowledge and the right equipment, the right technology, and enough time to play around with that to show you a different kind of organism that thinks about things in an entirely new way and is probably a hell of a lot smarter than you or I. It's my 2 cents. Hello from Annecy. Beautiful. Climbed one of the highest mountains in Europe today. It was just c'était chouette, as we say in France. Peace out.